Hello and welcome to another episode in season 3 of The Road Less Taken, the web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and had fun doing them. My name is Venky Srinivasan, your host. My guest today is an interesting personality. Senthilnathan, or Senthil as we call him, went to IIM Kozhikode and, like all good B school grads, joined a banking career, worked in Citibank for almost a decade and a bit more, and was Chief Innovation Officer there, till he finally decided to do something on his own and pursue that entrepreneurial bug that was always with him. He spent some time figuring out what to do and then opened a very interesting place in Chennai called Untangle, which is the house of puzzles, where he is trying to position puzzles and board games as not just activities for kids, but interesting activities for adults and families to do together. Let's welcome Senthil and listen to his wonderful journey of Untangle, the House of Puzzles. Hi Senthil, welcome to The Road Less Taken. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Venky. Very happy to be here.
Okay. You have a very interesting story that I thought our viewers will find fascinating. So let's begin. IIM Kozhikode, the big bad world of banking, Citibank for more than a decade. Tell us how that journey was. What were the thoughts when that was going on? Did you just see yourself on this long corporate route? And when did that change happen?
So when I joined Citi itself, it was a matter of when I would quit and start on my own.
Okay.
But the job was so interesting that something or the other would keep happening, and just there was something challenging every year to do. So it just kept going, and I kept postponing. Then finally decided, okay, this is more than a decade is done. So it started to think back, 10 years in one place. Okay, this is more than enough. So let me start something on my own, was the thinking in the 11th and 12th year. So the 12th year is when I decided, okay, whatever it is, moving on. Even if the next challenge within Citi is fantastic or great or fantastic opportunity, it has to be something outside. So decided to one fine day just quit and then started looking for opportunities as to what we can do.
Okay, interesting. But the entrepreneurial bug, if you want to call it, was you're saying there pretty much throughout, even during B school and things like that. Did you have other ideas that you had made plans about then and so on?
So two parts to this. One, the entrepreneurial bug, I like to believe that was already there because all of both my parents are entrepreneurs. My uncle is an entrepreneur. So all my close relatives are entrepreneurs. So I was the only one in a corporate job, so to speak. So it was always there as to, I should be able to do it if I get into this journey. So it is not going to be difficult or different was the thinking. So wanted to do something. Should we do? And the fact that a monthly paycheck keeps coming and you've got a lifestyle that is used to that paycheck, those are probably the hindrances towards it. And yes, when I quit Citi, I didn't have a concrete idea as to Untangle was the one that I wanted to start. So it was pretty much a whiteboard. So I went and settled into a co-working space, a small one cabin co-working space. Okay. Had about 4 or 5 ideas blown up inside. I had zeroed in on 2 of the ideas, whether we should really pursue and get into it. There were discussions with my existing friends who were already co-founders in startups where they wanted me to join also. Right. So it was a very confusing time whether to join them or do something on my own. That wanting to do something on my own seemed to be a key thing. So I told the couple of friends who we were discussing with, saying, okay, I want to do something on my own from scratch. Then between the 2-3 ideas, decided on Untangle as the one that we should pursue.
So that is very interesting. I mean, I really want to understand, and perhaps you can begin by telling our viewers a little bit about what is this interesting vision that you have conceived around a place like Untangle. The thing I find most fascinating is that intuitively everybody would say things like puzzles and games are for kids, but you are trying to change that landscape altogether and say that this is not just for kids. In fact, it is more for adults. So what was the core of this idea and how did it take shape?
So I have a 5-year-old daughter who, at the time at which we were starting Untangle, she was 3 or 4 years old. So wherever we used to go together, we would either go to a place for her and we both would just sit there waiting for her to be done so that we can just get her back home. Or if we both want to go to a place where we will have fun, we have to figure out what to do with her. Do we take her and still force her to have fun, or leave her with somebody and then go feel guilty and come back quickly? So we didn't think of too many places where the 3 of us could go together and all of us do something that we all love. The beach is probably one thing that we could think of, but apart from the beach, nothing much, right? If we're going to a movie, you have to think of a movie that is suitable for both. Either you end up sitting in an animated movie with her, or we end up taking her to a movie which she doesn't understand or like. So we said, okay, there must be more people who want to get out as all age groups, as friends, as families, as 3 generations together. So we started evaluating what all can be done. So we saw that these board game lounges had started becoming popular across multiple cities, but they were catering to that segment of age group, which is youngsters, but not too old, right? Not too kids either. So again, to go to a board game lounge, you had to leave the kids behind, or you couldn't take your parents along if you wanted to go. So we started thinking, is there any other thing we wanted to do? When we started evaluating this, that's when we realized a lot of people want to go to places which don't have any gadget access. People plan vacations around places which are gadget free.
Right.
Let me go to a place where there is no network coverage. So that's a need, right? Where you want to go there, you want to get away from your device, just do something which keeps you away from the device. Then started evaluating what else can be done. We realized puzzles is something that can encapsulate the all age groups, starting from a 3-year-old till senior citizens. There's something for everybody. So he said, let's try and build an idea around this. Started researching around this. Then we realized what people know about puzzles is only this much. The world of puzzles is so much, right? Puzzles is not just a educational thing where you do it because you want to pass an exam or something. It's a form of recreation. It can be a form of recreation. And people understood that puzzles are used by people as a form of relaxation, improving focus. Those are things we didn't know or we didn't think of. We realized when we started digging into this. And we realized there are thousands of puzzles out there which people haven't even seen, haven't had access to. So we said, okay, let's build a business model around this. Figured out a few people who would be able to vet this business idea to see what we can do. So we said, okay, we'll add puzzles as the core. We'll add some board games and structure this as a place for grown-ups. This is not a place for kids. This is mainly for grown-ups because as grown-ups, we don't have any places to go. We'll have something for the kids also, so that when the grown-ups are doing some puzzles or playing games, the kids can sit at the side of the table or the nearby table and they can do their own stuff, which is pretty much where we began down the Untangle journey. So far it was a punt because no such place exists as far as I know in Chennai, in India. I don't even think it exists outside the country also. So we said, okay, let's build a business around this. Let's build a little cafe, board games, jigsaws. This combination is what we decided to venture. I think we started February of last year. That's when we began February 1st. We got covered by Hindu and Indian Express in the first week of our launch. So we were expecting the place to be houseful, but probably by the 6th month or so. And in the very first week, the place was running houseful because it was new. Everybody wanted to understand what is this place. So thanks to the coverage in those two newspapers, we were full. And sometime during March, we were pretty much running like a full-fledged business. And then came...
And then, of course, something no business plan could have predicted for happened.
Correct. So 40th day for Untangle was the lockdown that hit us. So we had to shut her down.
Wow.
So we were on an adrenaline rush till then to see, wow, this is an idea which we didn't know whether it's going to work or not. And suddenly it's been validated by so many people. People come in, refer more people, and people come back. Those are indicators that it works. Not many people knew us, but whoever knew us was happy with what we were doing. But we had to shut shop and then sit at home for about 5 months or so without opening the doors. So it was a lot of stress during that time. Did we do the right thing? Will people come back when we reopen? What are we going to do about the investment that we put into this place? And so on and so forth. Yes.
How did you get through this period finally? You did some interesting online things as well during this period, right?
Yeah, for the first 2 months, we were pretty much just lying low, saying, okay, it'll open next week, maybe 2 weeks later, maybe a month later. Let's just survive the storm and then resume from where we left off. Then by June or July, we realized, okay, this is going to be a longer thing. Before people start forgetting our brand, we have to do something to keep our brand alive online. So we said, why don't we post a puzzle online every day? So every day morning at 9 o'clock, we post a puzzle. People reply, and then by end of the day at 9 o'clock, we publish who all got it right and publish the answer. No rewards, no prizes, just a fun. At home, you're spending 5 to 10 minutes just giving exercise to your brain. What initially started off as, because I had nothing better to do sitting at home, I started doing it. People started getting hooked to it. And it became, when is the next puzzle? When is the next puzzle? So it has kind of become a trend now. Every day we've been posting a puzzle for the last, 8-9 months. Today we just posted our 275th puzzle.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. So that's not something that we had planned when we started Untangle to have this online engagement. And now we have reached the state where we are unable to even stop it because there is a whole bunch of people who are hooked to it on a daily basis answering. So even though now in the last couple of months, we have back to reopen Untangle in January pretty much. And now we are back to running houseful as much as we can. So we are unable to focus as much on the online puzzles as we used to, but people are hooked to it. So we have to now figure out a way to manage both the physical space and the virtual world of puzzling now.
But when you went about structuring and putting the place together, what challenges did you find in terms of availability of high quality puzzles and board games in India itself? And I mean, of course, during my own visit to your store, I realized that a lot of the stuff you have are things that are not readily available in a normal retail store or a bookstore in India. So tell us how you discovered that whole process.
So that was a fantastic learning experience because it went down a 3-month, 4-month journey where I met close to hundreds of people all over the place. So went down the supply chain of how the puzzles reach a final shop, where does it come from, where do they get it from, and so on and so forth. Kept meeting different people. I have gone into godowns and basements and crawled into basements where they had cartons that they'd imported 10 years ago and probably did not sell. They've just put it in the corner in the basement.
Wow. Okay.
Now, suddenly, when I asked them about puzzles, they said, we have one carton lying there, but it may have spiders inside. If you go. Somebody took me with a torchlight. We opened it. I found 10 puzzles that are in the shelf behind me right now.
Okay.
So that way, it's all over the place. It is not very structured because people don't buy puzzles as much, right? As much as they buy books or any others, right? Because puzzles, once you solve it, you don't know what to do with it. Either a jigsaw puzzle, you frame it and put it up on the wall, or you dismantle and put it back in the box and put it in the cupboard. It doesn't have that reuse value, which is why the retail space for it is not as full-fledged in India compared to the other countries. Right. The other countries, it is much more full-fledged. So in India, we found X number of brands. Then we figured out Europe and US are where many more brands are there. So had my friends from there bring in copies for me. Had importers here who have imported those products 7 years ago, but never really hit the retail chain. They had it in their godowns, went and picked it up from them. So a lot of learning experience from there. And those people were able to refer more people. Hey, I'll give you a contact of this person in this city, in that state. He has some stock. He will send an Excel sheet. And so on and so forth. So I got lost in the maze of people. So that has worked so much well that every day I get people emailing me Excel sheets of puzzles that they've found or they have or they're going to get and so on. So we keep adding to our collection. So almost on a weekly basis, we add 5 or 10 more now, which I hadn't found back then. Now we have.
What is the total inventory now? That is
so there? I think our last count is about 850 puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, and about 150 board games. That's the combination.
So 850 jigsaw puzzles and 150 board games.
Yeah. So we wanted to hit that 1,000 mark. So we
I think you hit it. Fantastic. Fantastic. So what have been the unique experiences of people who have visited your place? For many of them, it may have been like a first time. For many of them, it may have been an experience after many years that they are coming into engagement with a puzzle or a board game. What have been some really like interesting reactions? Has there been like, have there been, you must have got your share of feedback, I'm sure. So tell us about that.
So it's fascinating to hear people talk about how they view puzzles, right? We get two sets of people. Some of them who think puzzles are not for me. Puzzles are either for kids or they think puzzles are boring. It is not, it is too intelligent an activity that is not for me. I would rather just have fun. So some of their friends drag them and come. So I see groups of 6 people come, where at least one of them will be like, when can we go home? I don't want to stay here. And then they come in, they realize, they say, okay, I can't solve puzzles. They sit down. And by the end of 2 hours, the person who came in being most least interested, that is the person who says, let's continue. Because he's got hooked to it. Or he or she has got hooked to it to the point that they kind of discover that this is not a nerdy activity and this is not for kids either. This is an activity. And by the end of this activity, you kind of get that hype. So the good thing about jigsaw puzzle solving is whatever time and effort you spend on the puzzle, at the final step, when you place the final piece in and it closes, you know that all the steps you've taken so far are correct. So you've not made a single mistake, or even if you made mistakes, you've been able to undo and correct them. So right now, whatever is here is perfect. And that kind of gives you a hype. And that is addictive. So whoever comes in with a skepticism about puzzle solving overcomes that by the end of it and says, okay, this is fantastic. The second group of people that we really get fascinated by are the people who come as three generations. There's a little kid, there are parents who brought them, and parents who brought along their parents, so the grandparents, so to speak. And all three of them find something different to do here. So the grandparents will be at logic puzzles, the parents will be doing a jigsaw, the kids will be doing their own set of jigsaws. Then all five of them, three generations, will come together and play a board game. And they go back and say, we've never had an activity where all of us got involved like this together. Very rarely, even at home, it's very difficult. We could probably watch a movie together, but all of us are looking one way direction towards the movie and not really interacting with each other. Here, as a group of six, all of us have forgotten our phones and just been interacting with each other for 2 hours, and we've not seen how time flies. So that's an interesting reaction. The third one we see is a bunch of people who come in for me time. So they say, I want time for myself. I'm half the time I'm doing things for the sake of others, at work, at home. But for myself, I want that 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day to just get away. In a week, in a month, once a time. Not many places that they can go to and just spend 2 hours doing what you want to do. You could take a book, go to a coffee shop and sit and read. But this gives you another alternative to come in here, pick up a jigsaw puzzle for yourself, solve it. Pick up a bunch of logic puzzles, solve them by yourself. Kill 2.5 hours time, have a cup of coffee while you're at it, and then get back to your day-to-day. That we have a significant chunk of people who visit us as a weekly me time, where they come in on Saturday or a Sunday, spend a couple of hours, and then go.
Very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. So, obviously, you already touched upon it in terms of the corona-induced lockdown that happened last year and so on. But in the last about 15-month journey of running Untangle, and maybe like the year or so before that, when you were still figuring out what to do, etc., have there been like really low points, despairing moments where you've thought, boss, this is not going to work. I'm really missing that credit in my bank account from Citibank. I should go back to a corporate career.
So far, thankfully, I haven't had that feeling yet, because there's been optimism that thankfully we got those 40 days before the lockdown to see that it works. Had that not happened, maybe there would have been some skepticism. Is this a good idea? Will this work? So we kind of tasted blood there. So there was it's a matter of time to get back to business. So when the lockdowns eased, sometime around August, September, October or so, when we started opening, the number of people who were coming was still low compared to the people who were going to other places. On the street, you would see a lot of people, but coming to our place would still be low compared to Feb, March. That is probably the time we were thinking, okay, is this the right thing to do? Now we're trying to set up an indoor space during the time of COVID. Will people not come to indoor spaces at all in future?
Right.
Of course, it may not last too long. It's a matter of how much time people wait and how we kind of change our model to get people in. So we then started structuring social distancing here, open ventilation, and then people started coming back. And now people know what they're getting into. There are safety precautions in place, and people come in knowing what they are coming for. So that is kind of the low point would have been probably the September, October time when we resumed operations, but the people did not come as much. Now from January onwards, we are now pretty much back to February, March levels in terms of how many people are coming in.
Right. Fantastic to hear that. So what is next for Untangle? You've also set this up in Chennai, which many people would argue is intuitively not necessarily the first market to set up a place like this. Probably a Bangalore or a Bombay would be a more ideal choice. So take us through that a little bit, and your plans or your thoughts about Untangle becoming like a pan-India or even a global brand.
Two things. I am from Bangalore. My base is Bangalore. My wife's base is in Chennai. The two of us were living in Chennai when I was working in Citibank. She runs a company here already called Chalk of the Town, which makes customized bakes and chocolates here. So that's a running business that has a customer base over 8 years. So one of the reasons we thought about, do we kind of uproot and go into Bangalore, where there is a steady business running, and we are setting up a new business. So we'll end up having two new businesses pretty much in the family. Or do we kind of work around Chennai itself? And we realized, given that this is a space-based business, Chennai has, even though it might not be as big or a correct target market as Bangalore, if we can get enough people to come into the place to fill it up, it is going to be good enough. And Chennai has that many sufficient people all over the place. There are people within this locality of Chennai itself. We are based in Thenampet. So Mylapore, Thenampet, T Nagar, Nungambakam itself has a lot of people who want such things. And after we launched, we realized people are ready to make a trip from OMR, from Ananagar and Coimbatore, because for them it's a half-day trip. They decide they want to go to Untangle, they make a plan, they probably just finish their lunch, leave, come in here, spend 3 hours, get back home and hit the bed. So that has been good in that sense. But yes, when we started, the plan was 2020, we run Chennai, figure out what works, what doesn't, tweak our business plan, tweak our business model, learn from it, and 2021 we expand. Should the expansion be to other parts of Chennai or to other cities, which is mainly Bangalore, was a question mark that we had put for 2021. But given 2020 was spent in just waiting, we have kind of changed focus, saying 2021 we have to get Chennai working right. Let's not spread our arms and lens before we know how much of more of COVID impact we are going to face, because we don't know what else is coming, right? So we don't want to expand to another place now and then have 2 places shut down, if at all. That would hopefully it doesn't happen, but we don't want to get into that situation. So right now our focus is, let's focus on Chennai. Let's not even think about where we're expanding next. Yes, we should expand. How we should expand, where we should expand, what is the modality in which we do. We have them on notes and Excel sheets and so on, but we're not going to get into implementation state yet. For now, get back to Chennai to peak. And we have this online arm that is working well, based on which we've got corporate clients from outside Chennai.
Right.
So people, corporate clients want us to conduct quizzes, puzzles in the form of quizzes for their intranet, for their employees, where they schedule it for within their email chain or their intranet group and so on. So that has become an additional revenue chain for us. Where based out of Chennai, because we've kind of built a brand saying Untangle equal to puzzles, at least starting to build a brand, we want to be that. Whenever anybody thinks of puzzles, we want them to think of Untangle in future, right? So if anybody in their company wants to set up a puzzles competition or a weekly teaser that the HR wants to send out every Friday to people, we want them to come to us. We'll design custom made puzzles for them to send it out. Right. So that hadn't been a thought when we launched, but now it has become a thought saying, okay, sitting in Chennai, this is one way to kind of grab markets outside Chennai.
Excellent. All right. So last question, as we wind up our conversation, what is the one piece of advice you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs, people who've spent like longish career stints, but have a little bit of this angst to start up on their own or do something on their own? What is the one piece of advice you would give them?
The one piece of advice is do your homework. Don't just go by startup success stories, because the media feeds you a lot of startup success stories. And it's a confirmation bias, because they'll never speak to you about the negative stories, right? Or they'll speak to you about fantastic fraud stories. There are lots more in between. Businesses work because of not just one, but 20, 25 different things that go right, and your ability to manage things that go wrong, right? So don't just go by headline stories of, let me quit and start something on my own, let's figure it out. It may work for a lot of people, may not work for a lot of people. So do your groundwork, do your homework, and be ready to kind of put in sweat and toil and go through ups and downs as you go through the journey. Not saying that people shouldn't quit and start on their own. It should be, but do it only if you know what you're going to get into, and you have a bank balance that can at least save you for the next 1, 2, 3 years if at all things go down south.
I think that's very useful and practical advice that resonates very well even with me. So on that note, Senthil, thank you very much. Fascinating conversation. More power to you and to Untangle. We hope to see you in Bangalore and in many other cities across India from where viewers are watching the show very soon, and all the very best to you.
Thank you very much, Venky. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Senthil's conversation with me on this episode of TRLT. For more such episodes in full and in highlights packages, please go to our website, consultnexus.in, our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, all the videos are available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Nexus Consulting. Please share it around with your friends and with people whom you think might enjoy listening to such conversations and be inspired by them. Till I meet you on another episode of TRLT, this is Venky saying, stay absolutely safe and take care of yourself.